Hello, Lynn. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. And yourself?
I'm doing excellent, Lynn. How are things going this week?
It's a busy week. Got
Yeah,
lots of speaking engagements. I've been very busy writing, dealing with client work, but it's all good.
good.
Busy, busy, busy work, but it's good.
Yeah, that's good.
How
Well,
about
thank you
you?
so. Well, things are going well. It's kind of a wobbly job market, isn't it? Lots of
It is
people.
a very strange one. Yes.
Yeah, lots of them that I talk to, they say either they're getting interviews or I'm not really getting interviews or I'm still new to everything that I'm doing, so I have no idea what the job market is doing. Or is it true that all these jobs that are added and they're repeating themselves, meaning reposting these jobs, right? Lots of these employers are doing that as well. You might have seen or heard a lot of job seekers. They kind of have these preconceived notions as well, saying the job market is dead. But I continue to convince them, saying, "Hey, maybe some of the jobs are not really serious, or employers are not really serious about you know hiring someone right away. Maybe they're holding off on certain roles, but 80% of those jobs are actually hiring. Someone's going through the interview process, because lots of people do say that they are getting interviews, and they're moving forward with that process. So I believe today's session is super timely because things have changed. And I believe Lynn and I, to give some context, Lynn, you and I met through another nonprofit, and then you were an attendee and came to me and said, "Chewy, you know what? I really like that presentation. Why don't you do the same thing for Great Careers?" That's the
Yeah.
start. And then you invited me into one of those presentations, and that's how we got our start. I love the fact that you have an elephant. I do have two elephants on two sides of my screen. I love the fact that you have an elephant. To give you a little bit of a context piece here, for people who don't know me or Lynn, I'm from Sri Lanka, lived here for 20 plus years now in North Dakota. So came from very warm 80-degree weather. My LinkedIn says it all too. And then came here to minus 20-degree weather 20 years ago, which is kind of an interesting phenomenon. That's for another day, but we're talking about careers and resumes and ATS systems and all the amazing things that we should share with our audience. At the same time, I think it's an action-packed session, so we're going to get through it slowly, but eventually, at the same time, we want to kind of cover as much as we can cover. So to kind of start off with, you can see my screen, correct? Everyone can see my screen. Lynn, you can see my screen as well. Perfect. Perfect. So today's session is going to be building a proof of work portfolio. So it's going beyond, a little bit beyond the resume component. Interview preparation and other things, we'll kind of leave it off to the side, because lots of people tell me, "Hey, I'm really good at interviews," or "I'm a leader. I've interviewed for multiple roles," or "I've been on the other side of the table interviewing people." So we want to kind of get you, everyone here, a jump start to get more interviews, because that's, I think, is the struggle for a lot. Because there's AI screening, there's ATS screening. What is the difference? A lot of people ask me. So we're here to talk about all those great things today. So Lynn, to get started, what are some of the things that you hear in your ear? Some of the things, that major things that you're hearing in the market?
Well, AI is, not going away. Um, According to the World Economic Forum, there's 170 million jobs that are going to be created over the next 10 years. And I'm a former K-12 teacher. So probably you heard President George W. Bush put out an initiative in 2001 called No Child Left Behind. And it was put into law in 2002. So I think we are in 2026 with no person with AI left behind, right? So there's a quote from Richard Baldwin. AI won't take your job. It's somebody using AI that will take your job. So you need to get on the bandwagon and, upskill, reskill, whatever you have to do, and add AI to what it is that you do, because you will have an advantage over somebody that doesn't have AI. In addition, the upskilling and reskilling, it's like a core survival skill, a raison d'etre. Yes, I speak French. So, you know, employers are now looking really at a lot of skill-based uh, qualifications versus degrees, which is, don't not get a degree. I mean, I'm working on my doctoral dissertation, or I should say I should be. So I'm absolutely pro education, but you definitely got to tap into the skills and whatnot, and especially upskill with AI.
So a couple things, right? I mean, AI is important. I tell people the analogy of the broom getting replaced by the vacuum cleaner. We replace the broom with the vacuum cleaner, but the vacuum cleaner cannot get the corners, right? So it's just like there's always that little piece of the puzzle that it cannot solve. And that's what you're seeing even with traditional AI that you're seeing. We call it the GPT models. Whatever GPT model you're using, Perplexity, great for research. Claude, really, really wonderful tool by Anthropic, really accurate as well. ChatGPT is kind of for the beginners to get started with AI, or even any of these Copilot or Gemini. There's Nano Banana 2 as well that just came out. So we're going to kind of blend in AI with this session as well, because AI is so important. To give you a head start, 93.7% of medium to large size companies use some kind of ATS screening, which has an AI component to it. And then 99.7% of Fortune 500 companies use some kind of ATS system that has some kind of component with AI. The big piece with AI is if you're building your resume using AI, you're probably doing it wrong. Let's get that out of the way. The reason why is because there's AI detection tools that these employers are using. If you're taking notes, think about something like a Zero GPT. The website looks ugly, but it does the trick. You upload your resume. You can even get yourself a review to see how much of AI is in your resume today. So if a free tool like that can do that trick, majority of these employers can easily do that themselves. So that next iteration ATS systems are all going to have that AI component, where the reason why is because last year we kind of pushed everyone to go and build their resumes using ChatGPT or any kind of GPT, right? The problem with that is the market is super saturated. Everyone's resume looks the same. All of a sudden, it's all generalized. It doesn't have the right context. It doesn't have the right verbiage. AI, think of it this way. When AI is pulling information, it's like a Google multiplied by maybe 100 times. So it's pulling all this information, and it doesn't have a way to kind of sort and filter correctly. So think of a system that an employer is using, something like Workday. That system is probably 5 years old. It doesn't have maybe so much AI built in or engraved into it. So that system already has a data set that it's pulling from when it comes to parsing keywords or the keywords that are already embedded into the system. So when it comes to AI, when you're building using AI, what happens is you're adding all these keywords and making your resume super fluff and hard to read and hard to get through. And all of a sudden you have a 5-page resume, right? So getting started with today's discussion, we'll talk through AI, but at the same time, other components as well. So to give you a little bit of an idea of who I am and who Lynn is. I know Lynn personally because Lynn and I has worked in the past, but to give myself a little bit of an idea of, for people who don't know me, who came through my LinkedIn messages or other invites that I've sent, thank you so much for joining. If you have not talked to me, here I am. My name is Chewy. I've lived in North Dakota for 20 years. for reference. And I started a company 10 years ago, and I kind of fell into it because I myself has an MBA. So you might be wondering, why is this guy writing resumes for people, right? So this guy has the education to go teach or do something else. Well, I did have a lucrative career. I worked at several large companies, to give you context, Microsoft and other several companies. And then I kind of fell into this, hey, I can't find a job to move myself to the next level. So one of the issues I had in my past was when I was applying to jobs, I had one resume, 3 pages long. And what was happening was when I was applying to leadership roles, they were saying that I was underqualified. And then I was applying to individual contributor or non-manager roles, they were saying I was overqualified. So where do I fit, right? So that was the issue that I had to solve for myself. So we'll talk through a little bit about that today. And then also, again, for reference, 100,000 resumes we completed by writing that many resumes by the year of 2024. So we have come through another several thousand resumes that we have written, including USAID as one of our we are a federal contractor to the USAID as well, that we wrote several hundred resumes as well. Lynn, maybe you can give yourself a little bit of a pat in the back here.
Sure. So here's my trajectory. I was born in Michigan, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, France, Canada, Ohio, San Francisco, Orange, California, back to Pennsylvania. So no, I was not a military child. But throughout that whole process, I've had experience in the corporate world. I've had experience in entrepreneurship, in nonprofit leadership, and also K-12 education. I'm a former K-12 teacher with 9 Pennsylvania Department of Education certifications. When my husband and I ran a business, we had a general contracting and construction management firm. We did about 5 to 7 million a year. And so that was like a whole new industry for me to learn. So I know all about career pivots and reinventions because I've done it about 6 times. So taking all that business acumen, what I do now, and I've been in business over 30 years, but I've only been in career services about the same time as you, Chewy, which is a little over 10 years. So I fell in love with the industry when I was a job seeker. Who knew, right? I just loved, taking the education portion of it because I used to teach this stuff to high school students. And then I kept going to all these workshops, learning more. And so now I'm very niche-y. I don't do anything else other than write resumes, LinkedIn profiles, LinkedIn company pages, and focus on keywords. And yes, I absolutely weave in AI, but it absolutely needs human oversight. So in addition, I run a 501c3 nonprofit. We are volunteer run. We run on a very small budget, and we run about 18 to 25 career education events a month. We have subject matter expert speakers like Chewy who come and share their expertise with us. And it's very rewarding because it's sort of my community service. I help people. But unlike Chewy, who is scaling, I like the one-on-one approach. And I don't do done for yous. I do done with yous. And therefore, there's limited hours in the day. So I just like working with people one-on-one and helping them be successful. I'm the mother of an AUDHD adult child, autistic and ADHD. And so, I've taught gifted and talented, I've taught special ed, and it just brings me joy to do that individualized instruction. So that's me.
Lynn, that's rewarding. And thank you for everything that you do to our community and to your child. And let's go through today's agenda because we want to get started with some of the things that are important. The reality of the job market. We talked about it for a little bit, but we'll go in depth. And then also proof of work. Above like they say, resume is a sort of starting point, right? So what are other career tools and how do you pivot or how do you navigate a job market or especially the 2026 job market. Now, Lynn and I both do this for a living, right? So you have an action-packed session here because there's so many things that we have to cover. We might even run out of time. So you can also, before we move forward, I want to say you can book time with us. We have a complimentary resume review session that you can do with, you could talk to me face to face, or kind of do like more of a Google Meet, or you can schedule time with me for a phone call. And then we can go through your resume, give you specific personalized feedback as well. There's the QR code for the free resume review that's coming up on the side. So you can use that anytime as well. If you do want to talk to Lynn, how do you connect with everyone?
So on my LinkedIn profile, if you are a first level connection, you will find my book a call link in my contact info. If you are not connected to me, there's two other places. So one is down at the bottom of the about section, where you'll see, book Lynn. There's a bit.ly link. But if you want to find out more about me and the nonprofit and where I'm speaking and what I write, I've written over 350 articles. Right underneath my LinkedIn headline, you'll see more gobsmacking resources. Okay. So that is my link tree. That's my link of links. And you can learn a lot more about me right there.
So today we'll talk about the role of the applicant tracking system. As I mentioned, every employer, unless they're like a small company with 25 to 30 people, they're using, unless that's the case, they're probably using an ATS system. A good place for you to think about is kind of a cutoff of, say, 500 employees, because they have to run payroll and they have to have an actual HR department. They have to have accounting. That means there's software involved in the process, right? So think of it as if you are applying to a role and then the organization is 500 big plus, that means more likely they're going to use some kind of tracking tool. And what that really means is you are not going to see this tool in play unless you look at the link above, and when it says workday.com, that's when you're going to see, or maybe it'll say ICIMS, or maybe it'll say greenhouse jobs or something like that. Those are the ATS systems on the back end processing the request, which means that when you upload the resume, and then it goes through that process to see if you are a good fit, good match for that specific position, comparing with the job description itself. And what is a modern resume looks like. So I'm a big proponent of advocating for the DRT. Dynamic Resume Template is one of the templates that we have identified as one of the best templates to use. There's thousands of templates that Canva or any of these other channels are recommending, but none of those, if you have pictures or if your resume is side by side, more likely your resume is not going to go through the modern ATS system. So what we recommend is the DRT, or Dynamic Resume Template, which I'll get to in a second. But if you want to Google search what DRT means, just type in Dynamic Resume Template or DRT, and then you'll be able to get that answer as well and read up about it. But let's talk about building your digital portfolio 24/7 assets like LinkedIn and other components like a portfolio document, a website. All those things are going to help you because that's going to be your social blueprint. And then also common mistakes. A lot of these candidates make. We'll talk through that as well. And then also career transitions is Lynn's specialty, so I'll have her talk through that as well. And then also upcoming overcoming challenges and showing your work. How do you do it in a very digital, very social, and also a busy world, because people only have maybe 5 seconds, or I call it goldfish memory nowadays, especially with the recruiters. So let's get on to talking about the reality of the job market. Lynn, maybe you can start off and talk a little bit about what you're seeing in the market today.
So when we started off, I mentioned, a little bit about what's going on. I really think there are more job seekers than there are jobs available right now. Hopefully things will sort themselves out, but we have what we have in the current economy. So you kind of got to roll with it. And how are you going to figure out how you're going to stand out, build your personal brand, and like be the person of choice for a role where you have a lot of competition and people that are applying for the same role. So you have to do something to differentiate and distinguish yourself. So you're the purple squirrel, so to speak. That 7 seconds, oh yeah, that is right on. So if you go to Google and you type in resume, heat map, Business Insider, those 3 words, and then hit images, you're going to see this, blue and white 2 resumes side by side with heat maps, yellow and orange blobs. So on the left is a black and white resume, and the blobs go down where the recruiters were looking at, the resume. They go down about 2/3 of the way. The one that has the shaded bands on the right, that's the one that has the blobs, the heat maps going down from top to bottom. So, I looked at, I think you've got a resume example coming up, Chewy. You and I are pretty well aligned with our resume look. It varies a little bit, but you've got to have a little bit of pop of color, I think, because we're talking with humans. But then you have to be able to sort of deconstruct that and have no formatting and whatnot, so the bots can read it. So you're doing a balancing act, but you want to make sure that you don't use templates like from Canva. Those are, I would say, no-nos. And you don't want to use 2 columns. Those are, to me, no-nos. I always do things left to right because you don't want those section breaks. So, that to me is important for the modern resume, and just make it nice and easy to read, and don't use AI to write the whole resume because there's coding built in there, and you don't want to be in what I call the sea of sameness. Okay. That's why there's, people like Chewy and I that do what we do. It's to help you use your voice and your personal brand so you stand out.
Add to that, thank you, Lynn. And to add to that, what I would personally do is proof of work is all about qualitativeness, meaning impact. And then it's about relevance, and it's about verifiable information. And then it's about problem solving. And it's also showing specific details of deliverables, measurable outcomes, goals, timelines, KPIs, people management, process improvement, revenue generation, cost reduction, time savings, working with partners, vendors, contractors. Now, all of a sudden you have a 5-page resume, because if I were to kind of continue to go and talk about projects, processes, and then break it down into direct, indirect report relationships, budgets managed, working with the C-suite, working with board level engagement, there's so much to it. So how do we, instead of jam packing a resume, how do we be more strategic, right? So that's a question maybe Lynn can answer.
So a lot of people say, oh, I should have a 1-page resume. Well, I'm going to say that's perfect for a 14-year-old who has no experience, but you can't tell your whole story. If you are a college junior looking for an internship for the summer, if you're a college graduate, you may not have a lot of experience, but 1 page is not going to allow you to tell your whole story with your profile, summary paragraph, your keywords. You do have accomplishments, believe it or not, even if you're a barista at Panera or something like that. So I think, even as a young adult, you could have a 1.5 to 2-page resume. I'm not a fangirl of going over 3 pages of resumes for even senior executives, but you can go back maybe 12 to 15 years. That's kind of my, bandwidth of time, where you detail the bullet points under each work experience. And then you can have, early career or whatever you want to call the other section, and just have one-liners of your work experience with, company, city, state, title, dates, etc. And you can have all the details on your LinkedIn. That's the beautiful thing about LinkedIn. But on that resume, because it's a really tough job market, you need to put those metrics on there. It's essential. I make my clients put them in every single bullet point, and they're like, I don't know that. I'm like, I'm going to pull it out of you. Don't worry. You need to have dollars, numbers, percents. Tell me how you helped a company make money, save time, improve processes. It can be done, even as a barista, or at Starbucks or Panera or whatever it may be. You have metrics, even as a high school student or a college student.
So what you could do is to think about the smallest detail. Like say, if you're a barista, say hypothetically, how many customers are walking in and out of the door, right? Or if you're on a drive-through, how many customers, because they're going to talk about it in a leadership meeting or some kind of meeting, right? So they're going to say, we have served this many customers this month. There you go. That's a number that you can add. If you're in like a customer success or customer service, there's those metrics that you can add. If the company is not keeping track of it, it's time for you to keep track of some of those metrics. They're not going to go and ask the company, hey, did this person save this kind of cost? Or did this person improve this kind of process? All they want to do is to verify that if you've worked there, right? So don't overthink this and then think, oh, the company cannot verify this information. Well, then maybe even think about it twice. But if there is an actual opportunity that you worked on, you got maybe a certificate or maybe certain milestones that you can verify with your coworkers, more likely that'll be something that can go in. Also use company's metrics as well, because you're indirectly helping the company. Maybe the sales team as a whole met this benchmark that they wanted to, and then the company grew by maybe 300 sales rep. As the sales director, you should be able to take that credit and then put it in and saying company grew, and then the sales staff grew by 300. Or maybe the company's bottom line grew that year, right? So the company's growth, you can show that because that's more of an indirect experience that's coming in. If you're in a revenue generation role, you want to think about those things. Or maybe you're in a legal counsel or you're in HR. There's business transformation that's happening around you, right? So you can think about all of those things that you can bring in, and then also think about smaller numbers. Maybe how many projects that you were part of. How many meetings that were that yielded into something. Instead of talking about the meetings itself, the number of meetings, and then talking through the timeline of that, what really yielded into, would be a good measurement point to bring in, because then you can talk about stakeholders, you can talk about processes, you can talk about technologies, you can talk about timeline deadline management experience, you can talk about problem solving. There's so many things you can do without actually saying problem solving. You're showing them examples or real life experiences or case studies. For an instance, all you need is 35 sentences on your resume. That's it. 2 pages, 1,000 words. I would, in my personal experience, that seems to work the best. If you have less than 10 years of experience, I would go with a 1-page resume, because you don't have enough career accrued enough to put it into a second page. And also recruiters might feel like you're overqualified. If you do have over 10 years of experience, it's time for you to switch it out to a 2-page resume. Why? Because the AI systems and ATS systems can detect the 2 pages worth of content, and it's actually reading that information. So think of it this way. If you present a 500-word resume, which is equal to a 1-pager, and me, someone coming in and presenting a 1,000-word resume, I might more likely have more keywords to beat you to the punch. So the system might pick my resume, even though I have less experience than you, because you went for a 1-page resume, you're not even getting through. So that's the age that we're living in. So we have to make sure that we are kind of working through these really important components of the hiring process. Now, people ask me, is ATS systems perfect? No, not at all. It's nowhere to be perfect. I mean, I wouldn't even say it's like 80% of it is probably good, but a lot of good candidates do get left behind. But the reason why is the ATS system is leaving you behind is more likely to do with your resume. It's not so much your career. It's about what you're saying and how you're saying certain things and how you enunciate or how you comprehend, how you say certain things matter in 2026. So say, for an instance, when I'm building a resume, I am all about data. The reason why is because, and as a standard practice, when someone comes to me and say, hey, I'm looking for a job, my first few questions are, what kind of titles are you thinking? Give me 3 or 4 titles. What kind of locations? What kind of salary expectations? Industries you want to target? That would help me to do my own research. So what I'm doing with my team is going through all these jobs and then running keyword analysis against those jobs and using your resume. The reason why is because then I can get to a point where, say, hypothetically, I got to 1,500 keywords. Out of those, maybe 700 or 500 keywords got repeated a lot of times. Say one word that's repeating itself is cross-functional collaboration. Got repeated maybe 85% of the time. I know for a fact now that cross-functional collaboration needs to be on the top half of my resume. Why? Because it's a call-out item I need to discuss. But what people are doing is they're blandly putting cross-functional collaboration under skills and then leaving it out there and then not talk about it, right? So what happens is the recruiter comes in, they see the cross-functional collaboration, and then they're going to think that you're going to try to gamify the system and then pass through the system, so they're not going to pick you. If I were to do this same exercise, I would start to discuss what are major milestones of me working with cross-functional teams? What's the largest cross-functional team I've worked with? What are some of the deadline timeline management experience I have? What are major things I should even be listing out? Because cross-functional collaboration is coming up. So I'm going to place certain words in certain places, at the same time use that same knowledge base to address that throughout the resume, and then talk about teams a lot more, because that's what they're really looking for. So when you're going to that second, third interview, and when you're meeting the team, they will appreciate for what it's worth. So Lynn, go ahead.
You're singing my tune. Yeah. Yeah,
And
I do data-driven decision making with the keywords also. And yes, there are different strategies to use in different parts of the resume and on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is a database, but we also have our own industry vernacular. But one thing that's really important is, speaking of the ATS as the gatekeeper, you start with questions at the beginning, and you could be toast after you answer a couple of the questions if you don't meet what they're asking. So those are called throwout questions. So if you go in and you have 3 years of experience and they ask for 5 and you don't have it, that could be it. You could be done for. So you don't want to lie, but maybe you shouldn't have taken the time, to apply to that job anyway. But I am mostly a fangirl of going to the company website first before you try to click anything like easy apply or anything like that on LinkedIn. There's only so many hours in a day, and there's only so many humans in the human resource department. And if they have a company ATS system, don't you think they're going to go to that first before they go, elsewhere? So maybe, you could also apply on LinkedIn, but I would definitely go to the company website first. What do you think, Chewy?
I think you're right on. Honestly, that's my personal recommendation as well. The reason why is because, think of it this way: easy apply is easy for you to press a button, but for the employer, the recruiter, they have to read through all the applications that have come in. They have to download all that information into an Excel or some kind of CSV file. And then they have to upload it back to their ATS system. And then they have to run a scan against all these applications that have come in using your resume and cover letter, and then sorting a short list out of that, which is a ton of work in terms of a recruiter. If the recruiter is hiring for 10 different positions, they're going to take a week to just get through that pipeline, right? So now all of a sudden it creates an issue for you because you're probably not hearing back. Now, my personal recommendation is do both, and maybe use 2 different emails to do this also. When you're using, like if Easy Apply comes up, and then also the job is listed on a company's website or a job board that you've never heard of that you found this job through. And what you could do is when you see an Easy Apply job, copy and paste that title, copy and paste the company's name, and see if the job is elsewhere as well. If it's listed on the company's website, it's the safest place to apply, because these companies, like Lynn said, they're investing in ATS systems. So that means it's all plugged in, and on the back end, what's happening is HR team, well, someone like a hiring manager would create the job description. And then the HR team, they will present it to HR. HR will go to IT. IT will upload the resume, the job description. And then when the applications come through, that's when it's going to filter all of that. And that happens naturally and automatically through their system. If you are getting thanks for applying, but we've decided to go with someone else, that kind of gives me a good opening. Let's see. Let's do a Q&A quick. How many of you here have received a large number of rejections saying, thanks for applying, but we've decided to go with someone else? Maybe a yes or no would be sufficient. I want to see how many of you are getting that response, because that's an ATS rejection, you guys. That's what's really happening. 75% of these applications get discarded, and within a week, or could be 48 hours or 72 hours, you're getting this rejection message saying, hey, you're a great candidate, but we've decided to go with someone else at this time. So we're talking technology. 5 years ago, if I were to tell someone they're using ATS systems, which they were, because applicant tracking system software programs were there before AI became a thing. It's like your phone. Now it has AI into it, right? So added into it. So it's not a new thing. They were data parsing before 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And when I was working, they were still doing the same, and the systems have evolved. They have gotten better. Like, say, for an instance, back in the day, they were just looking at keywords. Now it's like 10 or 15 different criteria they're looking for. So it could be a list of keywords, phrases, topics, lingo, verbiage, competencies, years of experience, achievements. And Lynn rightly so said it. 3 years is what you have, and they're looking for 5 years. So you cannot kind of use that as a reference there, right? So maybe even leave the years of experience out of the resume and build the resume and make it super relevant. So then they would see that, hey, you might not have 5 years of experience, but you do have a lot of transferable experience that would relate to them. Or some of you might have 30 plus years of experience who is listening in. If you have 30 plus years of experience, and if you've said 30 plus years on your resume, game over. I'm telling you, you're going to get overqualified. And the sweet spot for someone like at that level would be about minimum of 15 years. That's what the job description is going to say. So if you were to say 15 plus years, not 20, not 25, not 27, 15 plus is the safe number there. Because if you're not using that number, and I've gotten this question, why would I even put that number in there up top on the summary statement? Why would I need a number, right? I mean, that's a genuine question anyone can ask, because I have a lot of experience, Chewy. I don't want to just dupe them into thinking that I'm an old person. I get that a lot. And the real answer is that minimum of 15 years if they have listed that on the job description. And we're not talking overall leadership experience. It could be overall years of experience that they're looking for. If the number is minimum of 15, you want to say 15 plus. Why? Because the system is looking for that number. So if you don't have a number, then what happens is the system cannot recognize you as a good candidate to start with. And then also the recruiter, if you don't have a number on your summary statement, what happens is the recruiter, their scope is going to change. Meaning if you give them 15 plus years, they're going to say, okay, this person has 15 years of experience at least, so check. So they're going to continue to read the resume. But what happens is if you don't give them a number, what will end up happening is they're going to go through your work history section and then start counting the amount of years that you have. So now you kind of doing it backwards because it's not the right thing to do. The reason why is because now you're giving them an easy way to calculate the number of years. And now they're wasting their 7 seconds that they put on you on calculating the amount of years you actually have. So they're not reading anything. They're just adding up the numbers, which is not what you want to do. That's why that 15 plus number or 12 plus number. So think of it as what I've seen when looking at job descriptions is either they're going to look for 3, 5, 7, 10, 12, 15. Those are the things, those are the numbers I've seen as years of experience. Now, one of the other questions I get is, hey, they're looking for 12 years of experience, but can I say 10 plus? Well, if you say 10 plus, how do you negotiate pay? Because they're looking for 12 years. You are coming across as someone who is saying 10 plus years. So you're kind of doing a disservice for yourself there, right? So, and also there's a lot of answers coming in as well. Rachel, thank you. And then there's Ahmed. All of them are saying yes to that question. Thanks for applying, but we've decided to go with someone else. Everyone has gotten one.
Now you know the importance of tailoring a resume to each job application. If you have a solid base resume and it says, 10 plus because you're rounding it up, and that particular job application wants 12, and you can say, oh yeah, I do have 12, then you're going to change that 10 to the 12 so that it matches better. And when you put your resume up in the parser, basically you've got the bots kind of comparing your resume to the job description, and it will analyze it and it will come up with a score, a mathematical score based upon contextualization, content, right? So how well does your resume match the job description? And then, they have to go from there as to whether or not they're going to take all the people that are the best match of 95% and above or whatever it may be or not. So even though you may be a good match and very qualified, there may be people that are even better match that are also qualified. And again, you're dealing with limited time and resources. They only have so much time to interview and screen people before they pass you under the hiring manager. So I still believe in tailoring each and every resume, but you got to have a good solid base resume.
It's true. And that's kind of what it is. And as a company, I would never be able to succeed if I were to customize the resume for every job. That's also the truth. But then we do have a job application service where we would customize the resume and the cover letter for every job as well. So where we would apply to over 150 plus jobs. And the reason why me even bringing this up is because what Lynn is saying has 100% truth behind it. But then if you were to customize the resume for every job, like say for an instance, it's like your closet, you guys. You're adding more things naturally and not removing things. You might be thinking, oh, I might lose a couple pounds here and there, and then I might be able to wear it. No, buy clothes brand new. Don't do it, right? So it's just the reason why I'm saying that is because you do need a base resume. So Lynn said two things there: customize and have a base resume. The first piece is have a base resume. So what I would personally recommend is an approach where you ask yourself questions like what kind of titles, locations, salary expectations, and industries, and go through the actual job listings and run it through an ATS parsing tool. If you don't know a tool, JobScan is one of them, who is one of our competitors. Go and use them. They're pretty good. Also, Job Pro Max, we came up with that software. There's a lot of components to it. Job Pro Max, check it out. Since you're attending this session, feel free to send me a message on LinkedIn if you're connected to me on LinkedIn, or send me a quick email to chewy@thejobhelpers.com, or book time on thejobhelpers.com. I'll give you 30 days of free Job Pro Max subscription, $29 for no cost. Use it and lose it if you like. That's not an issue at all. We care about helping people, and this is something that I want to do for everyone. And then also schedule time with Lynn and I. For sure, you can book some time by clicking or looking at that QR code, take a picture of it, and then you can book time with me, or just go to thejobhelpers.com, or Lynn can be approached via LinkedIn as well. Talk to us, because you're not in an island. We are here to help. We are coming from where you're at right now, meaning I've lost my job a few times. And then Lynn has had similar type of experiences where she was a job seeker at some point in her career. We have done it over and over again, where I can give you so much of information. If you're doing it yourself, great. But if you want to do it, if you want me to do it, I can definitely help you as well. But at the end of the day, stay away from AI usage to build your resume, because those AI detection tools will get you. And the answer here is, can you use AI to create your resume to land interviews? Well, back a year ago, that was a thing when ChatGPT everybody was getting used to it. And then you can easily go and rinse and repeat, right? Customize your resume. What happens is the authenticity drops of the resume. The specific bullet points that you have with qualitative details are removed by ChatGPT, because it's trying to match a certain specific detail that you don't have, or maybe have it listed, just mildly listed, we call it, right? Or it's not really explained well enough. But you wouldn't know that, because ChatGPT is building your resume, and you wouldn't know exactly what kind of information is key and important. This is why I keep telling everyone that you want to do your own research by going through these keywords first. So what I would personally do as a resume writer is, I need a keyword list, and I need to put it in a repeated list. That way I can create that 80% of a match rate against all the jobs I'm looking at by strategically positioning that information on the resume. Because then I know where cross-functional collaboration goes. I know where the years of experience goes. I know where cost reduction needs to be listed. I know where people management needs to be listed on my resume. So the placement of the information is so important, because again, they have goldfish memory, 7 seconds, right? So you want to make sure that you catch them when they're reading through it, or capture that attention away. So using AI, what you could do, again, let me reiterate the fact that there's a thing called Zero GPT. You can go there. It's not a pretty looking website, but you can use it as a resource. Run your resume through, and see how much of a match you are for AI written resume, because it'll tell you how much of AI is in your resume, or how much of information is created by AI. So can you create it? Yes, but these are the reasons why not. Employer systems can detect, no real proof of impact, lacks personal context, sounds like everyone else, and misses role-specific nuances, and no credibility factor. Because the ChatGPT system doesn't know what exact information to articulate, what information to remove, because the system is not really thinking of removing things unless it's important or not important. But what happens is, when the system detects that it's important, you might not have the core base information to go in correctly, so the ChatGPT system will create a general sentence against that, and you wouldn't even know that. That's the unfortunate truth. So let's ask another question. It's 6 minutes into, and we have not covered a lot. Honestly, I have a lot of information to cover. Feel free to schedule time with me. Feel free to schedule time with Lynn. She's excellent. I wouldn't bring my competitor in if I didn't think that she was great. She's wonderful. And she's not truly a competitor. She's doing her thing, nonprofit work
One
as
at
well.
a time.
Exactly. She is doing one at a time. However, we are, as a company, we do volume because we do have over 100 staff. So we do have excellent coaches. We do have really good resume writers as well. Here's a sample resume I was talking about for the DRT, the dynamic resume template. So it needs to have a header. It needs to have a summary statement. It needs to have key achievements, professional experience, education skills, and additional experience or skills or sections that you can add. Like Lynn said, the average that you can show is about 15 years, you said, right? I would say I would go for even 20 years, I would show. And then anything beyond than that, you can create an additional experience section on your resume. So let's talk about digital portfolio. We have 5 minutes.
All right.
And I want to talk a little bit about that before we end the session, because this is an important piece.
So I have a LinkedIn newsletter and I have a Substack, and then I also write for other online platforms. And I've written a couple articles about portfolios, and I decided to update it last night in preparation for this conversation. So you will find that in the featured section of my LinkedIn profile. And in addition, I have put a Lynn's tips that kind of answers a lot of these questions and the things that we're going to run out of time to talk about. And that's in a Google Doc. So if you go under Career News Today and you see the media attachments, you will see the Google document, and it has lots of links built in with some of the articles that I've written. And somebody, I think in the chat, asked about where do I find that, the heat maps article and image. So everything is in there that we were going to talk about today, or did talk about today.
And Shilan has some good information that she's asking. Shilan, happy to answer the question if you can schedule some time with me, because her situation, Lynn, is previously metrics were not needed. Now they are. That is not information I have or have access to. What do I do? Well, the easy answer is think about day-to-day things. How many meetings are you having? How many people are attending these meetings, right? What kind of major objectives are they talking about, or milestones are they discussing? Keep track of that starting from now, because you cannot
they don't have to be individual accomplishments. You work in a hospital, in a 279 bed hospital. You supervised a team of 2. You worked on a team of 8. You work at a company of 600 million. I mean, pull some metrics from somewhere. It is possible. And I do have a prompt in that little attachment that I just mentioned.
You bet. And again, the best information you're going to get is scheduling time. And it's a complimentary session. I cannot tell you enough times. Schedule with Lynn and I. We would love to help, because we'll take a half an hour or a full hour just going through your career, and no sales pitches, I promise. Okay. Because if you don't have the time to apply to jobs or write a resume, really strong resume, because someone like me, I would say things like 4 interviews for every 10 jobs. Have I done it for everyone I've helped? Yes, absolutely. We have 100,000 of these testimonials. If you look at the past year and a half of reviews, Google reviews, Trustpilot reviews, BBB reviews, you won't see a bad review at the Job Helpers. That's really hard to do, when even if I help 10 people, someone's going to say something negative, right? So, and this is something of an art and a science built together, because you need to know how to be creative. You need to know how to be convincing, and you have to be relevant, but you have to also pick the data set, the right data set. not the ChatGPT's data set, not the cloud's data set. If you're doing it, you're probably doing it wrong, because then you're adding too much more than what you need. These systems, ATS systems, are not gonna, probably they're not engraved into those or have added those keywords yet. So you're probably missing out on some of those important pieces as well. As a result, your resume is super fluff looking, or it just doesn't speak well. And then also other things you can do, industry pivoting is a big piece, right? So that's Lynn's specialty here. If you're pivoting into a different industry, the best way to do it is to create some case study material for yourself, because then that way you can start kind of thinking about, how do I relate to them, right? So say, for an instance, if you're going from project management or coming from sales, going into marketing, or maybe some industry pivot, maybe you're a school teacher and going into project management, there's a lot of things that you can use in that instance as well. Or maybe you're going into more of a, from project management to operations, or any of these other trades as well. But there's three things that are common and absolute, which is people, processes, and systems. That's where you want to start, because if you think about people, who are the people I work with? Are they relevant to be discussed? If you don't have to mention the titles, like if you work with other teachers, if you're doing teaching and you're not going into teaching, you don't have to say I work with teachers. You could say I work with 3 or 5 or 10 cross-functional team members, because it's project management. And then stakeholder is a keyword that you can use and replace teachers. So then that way they know that this person understands project management, or they're speaking the language. That's important.
That's right. I've had a recent teacher. She wanted out after teaching, I think it was high school, some science, chemistry or something like that. And now she has an L&D role in corporate America, and she couldn't be happier. So it is possible. It's doable. Your experience is your experience. You can't change that, but you can position yourself with the right keywords for where you want to go to future forward, and the positioning statement.
Also, common mistakes, real quick, in 2 seconds. No numbers or results, you're probably not going to get good responses or traction. Really important. On your 35 sentences, 2 pages, 1,000 words, you need to have at least 20 sentences with numbers. That's the fact. Too much of text, you're going to bore them to death, or they're not going to read the information through. 2 lines for a sentence. Repeat after me. 2 lines
Yes.
for a sentence.
Yes. And no
if you-
one word on the second sentence, because that's a hanging widow or hanging orphan. So that's a grammatical faux pas.
There you go. And then no clear structure. It doesn't flow. It doesn't talk about the problem, solution, action, result, timeline. They're going to lose you on that. And then also generic claims, saying hardworking or a team player. If you don't have impact points, or if you don't have anything to tie that into, it doesn't really matter if you are a team player or not, because they're not going to read it in the context of that what they want to look at. So they're going to pass you over to someone else who clearly gives examples. And then also
those are no fluffy adjectives, right?
There you go. And then also, if you don't have LinkedIn presence, you cannot just be a ghost on LinkedIn. And also, people think that I'm posting, I'm commenting, I'm doing these things. No, you're doing all those things, but your LinkedIn profile content is incomplete. That means LinkedIn's crawlers cannot find you. So what that means is you're probably not even getting picked by recruiters. You're just a generic profile that's just sitting out there. Now, if you look at my LinkedIn profile, and if you have not connected with me, please do, because I have 16,000 followers. I get 10,000 impressions a week. This is not to boast about LinkedIn and about my accomplishments or anything. It is to tell you simply, hey, if you're connected to me, make sure that you are dropping my name into a message and say, hey, you and I are connected to Chewy. And the person will know who Chewy is because they have seen my post or some kind of engagement that they've had or seen a post or about the company, so they know exactly what I do. So use me as a reference. Do that as much as you can with others. Write recommendations to get recommendations. Very important. If you give to get, you're going to be very successful, because if you write a recommendation for someone, they're more likely going to give you a recommendation back. And then also, you have to have proof of work, meaning there's no portfolio, project work listed, or examples. It just doesn't feel authentic or credible. So that's an important piece as well. And if you're not tailored to the roles that you're targeting, for an instance, if you're applying with an old resume that's built 5 years ago, more likely you need to talk to Lynn and I. And
yeah, and your portfolio can be digital and print. You can actually print something out when you go to an interview. So I mentioned that in my article in the featured section.
There you go. Now, what's your biggest challenge in showing your work? We want to know. So if you can drop a comment on your way out, we would much appreciate it. What's your biggest challenge in showing your work? We would love to hear from you. And then you can schedule time with us. If you use the QR code, you can schedule time with me. If you would like to talk to Lynn, drop her a message. We would love to help you.
Amen.
Amen to that. And thank you for coming in. I know that we had over close to 200 attendees in this session. I'm so grateful that you're following me, you're following Lynn, you're listening, because listening is the first step in the right direction, of course. And then I really appreciate you coming in, putting in effort for your own sake and your career, because I had to do this myself as a job because no one was doing it on the other side. And someone like me, I know the value of time, and I also know the value of your career, because this is not your career. Things have just moved under the rug. Really, technologies have changed. Things have moved.
Yes.
Everything is being taken over by AI. AI is not going to replace you. Someone who knows AI is going to replace you. And final thoughts, Lynn, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you so much for having me. Feel free to go right under my LinkedIn profile to more gobsmacking resources that will get you connected to everything about me, as well as go down under Career News Today for this special document that I created with Lynn tips.
Thank you, everyone, for coming in. And I hope you have a wonderful evening. And thank you for joining in this busy time. I know you're probably listening in on traffic or kind of trying to feed your kid. So I appreciate you coming in. Thank you. And we'll do another session like this. And Lynn, I'm thinking we should bring you in again one of these times.
All right. Also. Well, thank you so much for having me. Have a great day, everyone.
Take care.